industry, isn't it? You're focusing on construction.
No, I'm focusing here, my sample is this three departments, General Directorate, Project and Maintenance, from three Saudi government sectors.
Okay,
They
yeah.
have nothing to do with the consultants.
That is only in Germany.
It would be ideal for your study that if you do establish that some of the national cultural conventions have a strong influence and they're the primary determinants of the knowledge sharing practices, it would be ideal to follow that up with some qualitative case studies to support those particular, I guess, empirical findings. Because sometimes when you write a journal paper or you do a PhD, it's not enough to just say there's an empirical link. You should follow up with some qualitative type pattern matching, like
That's what
Yeah.
you just said earlier. It's in the topic R.
Yeah.
And if you look at, let's say if you go back to your table, that empty table that you have there.
Which one?
The table, whatever, yeah, that's on. No, not this one, this one, yeah. Let's say, for example, there is about 9 or 10 squares of these that have been selected as the one that have some kind of relationship, that has been, significant, statistically significant. Then basically, the next task, or the following task, would be to build on that and say, well, I want to see how this works together after the multiplication and show that there is some kind of association in a case study. Where basically you get one particular group within one particular department of everyone and let them discuss a certain situation where you saw why or why not and the preference, how that affected the decision. That will be ideal, yeah. I'll like take that on board.
Some group dynamics or something like that.
Definitely. And you was talking about effectiveness.
I would love to add to this an effectiveness. What I would like to see, if you can go back to the
Conceptual model?
so this, please. One of the things that I had earlier in mind,
Can you this?
no, I'm old-fashioned. I don't use this kind of technologies. What I had in mind is basically following this, there will be another construct here, which will look at the effectiveness itself. Because for me, all it says, I prefer this, I prefer that, I don't prefer this. But where does that lead us? I would expect to see a construct that says, by having this preference, then that is not effective. So if you like, if we can come up with effectiveness of the application itself as a function of the preference, then that will help put the things in perspective, which it says, because these and these work in combination to affect certain practices, communication is effective between groups within the same departments. So the idea is to build up a third construct that is not too complicated, to look at effectiveness of current knowledge management within that group, and then you can link that. There's only one relationship that shows yes, how effective or ineffective that in relation to the preference.
Could you even ask, maybe you have two columns set up where the first column you're asking them their preference for, but then you ask them how important do you believe this particular knowledge sharing practice is for achieving effective outcomes?
In a perfect world, I'll ask too many questions.
Yeah.
But that again will come at the price or the cost of the response rate. But ideally, yes.
It will be too complicated for normal
You
people.
don't want to,
Either
Go back to
time
my seat, it's
consuming.
not the lecture. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, go back to them.
Yeah, I think it's, when you develop the questions, be very careful, because then you're gonna ask either the preference perception, how it's supposed to be, or what they've been doing so far. Because if you assess the national character, it's supposed to be what they have done, or they have been doing, not what you want to do, or what you want to achieve. So that's the question that has become very important. And then you need to understand the concept of correlations and regressions.
Yeah.
Because if not, then statistics is just tools. You can correlate anything in the world. Okay? It just happens that some people in Saudi wake up the time doing something, and in New York doing something. Oh, there's correlations. There's correlation needs to be probably being set up, or framework for correlation should be set up first.
Thank you. I'm already started manipulating with some statistical data, real data, with Dr. Lee, and that really gave me some idea about how the relations work and how you find the relation and how you put it in my context.
And probably